Capricorn, this is your week ahead astrology forecast by Astrology Motivation from Born Without Boundaries. In these weekly videos, I review the major planetary aspects and transits and how they impact your natal sun and what that means for your bottom line. To enjoy and understand this video, all you need to know is your birth date, because I will translate the rest for you. We're going to start out broad with what's impacting the world, and then we're going to whittle that down to focus on to Capricorn specific energies. And then I'm going to get into the 3 decans of Capricorn so that I can see how your natal sun is being impacted by all the other planets around it. Let's start with the big stuff, shall we? This is for the week of August 2nd to the 8th, 2023. I've got it all written down. That's where my eyes are pointed. First, I wanted to ask, and please leave the comments below, how did this full moon in Aquarius impact you guys? Aquarius energy can drum up some surprises, just unexpected energies. And so since this is a full moon, this could be unexpected emotions or unexpected connections to specific groups of people or movements or care or concern about the world. It could have drummed up a lot of those emotions and been a time to purge, or at least bring them to the surface and bring them into your consciousness, into your awareness. So I'm just wondering how it impacted you guys. For this week, we have no major transits, but we do have some interesting aspects. So let's review those. So we have Jupiter and Venus, both very active this week. And that matters because both of them are what we call benefic energies, benefic planets. It means they sort of have an optimistic air about them. And that's what we're going to feel because they are activated right now. There's a lot of interaction activity around there. Venus is in retrograde in Leo. It's a very prominent position for her. And then Jupiter is in Taurus. So in a week or so, they will be actually square to each other. But this week, let's focus on this week. And even the square doesn't necessarily mean that something bad is happening. They're highly activated because Jupiter is trying to Mars. By the 5th, Jupiter will be trying to both Mars and Mercury, because you know that little bugger moves quickly. And Jupiter's also square to the Sun. All of this energy is very optimistic. It is very progressive. It is very teach me, let me learn, I'm interested, I want to know, I want to explore, right? I want to explore physically and intellectually. I want to have conversations with other people. I want to try new things. And the square to the Sun is just sort of like, I don't think that gets in the way of it. I think it kind of incites it. It agitates it. It's like, I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to grow. I might be too ready to grow. I might want to grow too quickly, but I'm ready to grow. So it kind of just helps that energy along. I want to make progress. I want to, this energy of let me learn and grow and think in new ways and outside of what I traditionally felt comfortable in. This is also very spiritual energy. We also have Venus, which is in retrograde, yes, but she's still a benefic energy. She's square to Uranus and trine to Chiron. And I love this energy because there's a real energy of change about that. An energy of, I'm going to look for something different because I've learned, this is the Venus-Chiron connection. I have learned not to value what I used to value because the hard way. Right? But I've learned those lessons and I'm building myself up, making myself stronger in terms of my value systems and what I'm attracted to, who I'm attracted to, or what I give value to because of those hard learned lessons. You know, this is the Chiron trine. And then square to Uranus just says, I'm not going to feel right. It's set in what I used to feel attracted to or feel desirable for. Like I want something different. I want something new. So we have two very benefic energies looking to grow and expand and working with other energies to encourage that kind of movement into if not newer directions, expanded versions of the self. We also have Saturn, which is close to you because it is your ruling dignitary. Saturn is in opposition to Mercury this week, which can be contentious, but it's not as bad as Saturn opposite Mars. Saturn is also still semi-square to Chiron. That's long term. It's gonna be that way for a while. Though I think Saturn will retrograde back, so that semi-square will break for a little while. But ultimately, it's going to be around for a while. What does that mean? It's sort of the feeling of like I'll never be good enough. Or the thought. It's not necessarily a full-grown feeling yet. It's only a semi-square. So it's sort of an agitation that says, should I even try? Because there's all these restrictions. Like, what's the point? And then Saturn is also in opposition to Mercury right now, which is kind of a downer. There is this sense of, no, you can only say so much. You can only think a certain way. Laws, rules, regulations based on how you can communicate. Restrictions on what you can communicate, what you can say, or whether it's right or wrong. People judging really, really, really harshly. All of those things will happen when Saturn is in opposition to Mercury. But what I like is that Mercury is in Virgo right now. And so it's very conscious of its practicalities, of its logic. And it can be more objective than the energy of Mars can. Mars is all reaction, but Mercury is cool objectivity in a way. It has that ability. And so with all these restrictions, I think it could be working to expose what it is and where those restrictions are coming from, as opposed to just restricting things, like making people feel restricted. And especially with all these other energies around, there's a sense of that's just going to catalyze more resistance. It's just going to catalyze wanting something new when you realize that the status quo is just holding you back. And when you start to restrict speech or communications, this is not a good thing. And this will be this optimistic energy. This will be like sort of the catalyst or the spark or the match that lights the flame of, well, then we want something different. We want something new. We want to change. We're gonna grow beyond you then. So this is a really interesting energy, and it's very optimistic this week. Overwhelmingly, it's optimistic. Now let's go into Capricorn specific energy, shall we? I look at two things: what's going on in Capricorn and what's going on with Saturn. So what's going on in the zodiac sign of Capricorn? Pluto, and that is huge. Pluto has retrograded back to 28 degrees Capricorn now. It is really going to, definitely by the end of this year, it's going to move forward and be back in Aquarius. It'll eventually end in Aquarius. It'll settle in later 2024, so next year, where it'll stay in Aquarius, and it'll be there for about 15 years. I'm not sure of the exact time span, but a long time. But right now, it's back in Capricorn, and Pluto in Capricorn is very much about deconstructing, revealing, and destroying the toxicity within those institutions that human beings have built. And it's making, especially with Uranus and Taurus, it's making us question all our traditional structures of ruling and even being and behaving toward each other. So yeah, this is a tumultuous time, churning things up. But this week, there's an optimism about the new. And I like that energy. Saturn, let's talk about Saturn because it's your ruling dignitary, is in retrograde. It's in Pisces at 5 degrees. And it will be in opposition to Mercury through the 6th. So by the 7th of this week, like I said, this week covers through the 8th. So by the 7th, this opposition will be too weak to really have that much of an impact. So the opposition really won't be there anymore. So you'll start to feel this break or release. And then by the end of this week, there's just this beautiful energy of, I can do anything. I'm free. I just got to make the decision to get myself out there. And things are starting to shift and change. And we're going to feel that dynamic first personally. Changing your perspective on things. And then you'll start to see it on the large scale. Let's get into your decans, okay? Capricorn 1. If you know your natal sun is between 0 and 9 degrees Capricorn, you're Capricorn 1, because your natal sun is in the first decan of Capricorn. It's the first 10 degrees. How does this correlate to birthdays? December Capricorns, pretty much. Anyone born between December 22nd and December 31st. That would be Capricorn 1s. So not a lot is happening. And that's good, because there's just an energy of peace there. Like the tumultuousness isn't around you. There is a long-term sextile to Saturn, especially for those of you who have 5 degrees Capricorn. What does this mean? This means constructing your career, building out into the world, making sure that you take those movements and make that progress and feel secure doing it. A lot of career opportunities for the next year for you guys, because Saturn will be in the first decan of Pisces for the next year, until next year. We're going to move into the third decan of Pisces. It spends about 2.8 years in every zodiac sign. So it's about just a little under a year in each decan. So for you guys, this is just still a great time to work on career. Capricorn 2. Let's go back to Capricorn 1. Or be taken seriously. Be taken or seen as an authority on specific subjects. And let yourself, because that will open up opportunities for you too. Capricorn 2s. If your natal sun is between 10 and 19 degrees Capricorn, it's in the second decan of Capricorn, your Capricorn 2s. Birthdays, that correlates to, say, January 1st through the 10th. It's an estimate, but it's about there. Your natal suns are semi-square to Saturn, which can cause some irritation when it comes to feeling like you're always butting heads with people who want to control or be in charge, or that people aren't respecting your authority. Not in a huge way, but just in, not passive aggressive, but just in smaller ways. It's almost like dealing with somebody's stubbornness, or finding that yourself is more stubborn because it's your natal sun being impacted. You also have a long-term square to Chiron, which means you're dealing with confronting those hard lessons, feeling like everything is a hard lesson and everything is more difficult. And especially if you're born around the 9th or 10th of January, you're going to be feeling this majorly. Those of you born toward the 1st or 2nd, not so much. This is a very loose square for you guys at this point. But anyone born toward the end of the second decan, you're still going to feel that square for the rest of this year. And there is this energy of having to confront these, feeling like everything is made. Why is everything made more difficult? Why is everything a chore? Is it me? And it's going to drum that stuff up to make you confront your own insecurities and maybe your own where you're lacking. And then when you confront it, you can fix it, because that's what Chiron does. It teaches you to be stronger. This week, there is a trine to Jupiter. There is a trine to Mars. And by the 5th, so Saturday, there's a trine to Mercury. Despite these long-term energies between Saturn and Chiron, guys, this is a phenomenal week for you. This is an optimistic week of I want to grow, I want to change, I want to develop. I feel right about my world and myself, and there's lots of opportunity here to get things done and be highly effective, efficient. Your intellect and your mouth will be harmonious. You'll be able to communicate well, maybe even communicate, since there's a square to Jupiter too, foreign language, or communicate and learn different things that are outside of your normal religion or philosophy or culture. This could be a very exploratory week for you. And this trine to Mercury that happens by the 5th, so the end of this week is going to be so beautiful for your personal sense of expression, fortitude, and forthrightness, as well as productivity. feeling relaxed. So if you've felt a lot of tension, this could be a beautiful end of the week for you. Pluto. Pluto is in the third decan of Capricorn. Let's move on to Capricorn 3s. Capricorn 3s, if you know your natal sun is between 20 and 29 degrees Capricorn, you are a Capricorn 3. This correlates to birthdays between, say, January 11th and the 21st. That would be you guys, up to that Aquarius cusp, right? It's your natal sun, especially those born at the Aquarius cusp around, say, the 1st, maybe the 2nd if you were still a Capricorn on January 2nd. I would say maybe 20th to the 22nd. You guys are right there, conjunct to Pluto. So there's major dynamic changes in your life, but there's also a formidability about your energy. Whether you're aware of it or not, people are going to pay attention to you. And in some ways, they're even going to feel like you're looking into them, like seeing through them. So it could be a little bit intimidating, but it's also going to make people notice you more and take you more seriously. You're just going to have a lot more gravity to your energy. You're also square the nodes. And this is long term. I think through the rest of this year, for the next 6 months, you're square to the nodes. So there is this sense of my life is changing. And I'm participating in those changes. It's sort of a turning point, like your life is turning the corner, and you're going to notice that you aren't, the old stuff that you were interested in is now starting to bore you, and it's the new stuff that once didn't interest you at all or challenged you is now enticing you and calling to you, and it should. These major dynamics over the next 6 months are going to be impacting especially the duality between your partnership, your intimate partnership, and your individuality. And it's going to ask you to recalibrate those two energies, since that's where the North and South Node are. They're in Aries and Libra, respectively. You also have a trine to Uranus, which is long term, which is, I'm good with change. I'm good with the surprises. I'm good with the oddities and weird things. Out of all Capricorns, you're the most dynamic now. You're going through the most change, and you will be most surprising to people. And then we have a quincunx this week to Venus, which means relationships. Yeah, there could be some frustration that's going on there. Talk back, push back, or just general frustration with boredom. Feeling kind of stuck, like nothing's really new. This won't last forever, but it will come back up again over the course of the next, say, 4 weeks, because Venus will retrograde out of the third decan of Leo into the second decan of Leo, and then it'll come back. So when Venus starts moving direct, so that'll be later on after October. I'm just saying that this quincunx is going to happen again, so pay really close attention to what is being brought up and the situations now, because it could be that they're going to be resolved later on in the fall. Just an FYI. I love you guys so much, and thank you so much for joining me for your weekly astrology forecast. If you love this video, show the love by liking the video, and then subscribe to the channel. Now come on over with me to Born Without Boundaries Tarot for your weekly tarot card message. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.